Hello, everyone. Welcome to 10 Minutes Astrology. Every week, Alejo and I will be here to share how to study astrology and how to make the interpretation of the astrological chart. Alejo, how are you?
I'm conflicted because of the subject today.
Oh, dear. All right, then. Yes, I'm
Um,
not the only, you are not the only one. I think I also, especially when I was a beginner, I was just like, I really don't want to go there. I really don't want to do this interpretation because it's such difficult task.
it's difficult, it's deep, it's serious.
Yeah, definitely. So, Alejo, what we are going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about Saturn in the eighth.
That's why, because I have to say, for most of a beginner, when you think about the Saturn, it's not fun. Let's say, just say that. Keep it simple. Not they are not fun. And the A house is a little bit most scary place. Is like graveyard in astrology. So when
Saturn is
two things
also,
put.
sorry, I interrupted, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
Before Pluto, Saturn was also related to graveyards.
Uh
So
huh.
it's like the dark in the dark.
Yeah, the dark in the dark. So today we are going to the deep. Then we have to roll in the deep and go to the very very dark place. And but I'm still going to hope you're going to enjoy it. All right. So Alejo, could you share with us how do we do the interpretation of the Saturn in the A house?
Okay, so the eighth house is the house of intimacy. It's the way where we the idea of share resources with others. Is the way it's also the idea of inheritances. And when we talk about inheritances, we're not just talking in psychological astrology of money. We're talking about psychological inheritance. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
ideological inheritance, emotional inheritance, behavioral inheritance. So with Saturn there, first of all, I would say there's a fear of going deep. The idea that there's a sense of boundary. Maybe there's a fear to go deep. Maybe there's a sense of difficulty. There's a sense of detachment from going deep. So we prefer not to go there. We put a boundary there. Also, it could be in the idea of joint finances. It could be that we feel that our partner, there's something of our partner's money is never enough. What he shares or she shares is never enough. So in the sense that there's also some kind of struggle there. And what interests me most of all, more than all of that, is the idea of intimacy. So if Saturn is in the eighth house, to the eighth house, we use it to some. I think Howard Sasportas says what's happening in the bedroom. You see a relationship, and we never know what's happening really in the relationship, in the intimacy of relationship. If Saturn
Mm-hmm.
is in the eighth house, then it means there's a sense of restriction, a sense of limitation in achieving intimacy. So this person, may have a barrier when they have to meet with this other person, may have a barrier to go deep. There might be a strong defense or strong fear in going deep. It could also be that they feel rejection. They feel like they want to do it, but circumstances happen, and they can never achieve what they call a deep connection. Which, of course, in the
Mm-hmm.
case we have to unravel what does it mean, a deep connection for them, right?
Yes.
Hopefully, with time, the person learns to mature how to how exposing my vulnerability in intimate situations may not necessarily be threatening, but actually a sign of maturity. But of course, I'm overgeneralizing. I think this depends on each case, and I'm not saying that all of the cases should evolve into that idea. Um, I would emphasize most of all the idea of a sense of restriction in when we want to deeply connect with others, and perhaps this sense of
Mm-hmm.
restriction is coming from an inner fear, and perhaps this fear has been inherited by our family or things that happen in our family.
Yeah, it is very interesting because, as I say, Saturn in the eighth house, like Alejo says, is kind of the dark of a dark place, and for the beginner, usually there's a fear there, and when you see the chart like this, you just like you don't know how to deal with that. Well, don't be really afraid about it because you were born in this chart, and then you have the way to use it, and you will grow up and living with it already for a while. So you just like you are maybe unpacking something you don't understand why why are you doing this, or why are you doing this, and how could you deal with such difficult tasks? For me, Saturn in the eighth house, because Saturn usually take time to master a skill. And then when the Saturn in the eighth house is the deepest desire, like Alejo says, a deepest desire, and in the traditional view, is a shared resource, also the death or crisis, or the resource for partnership. What I think is, with the time and with the training, this person who has the Saturn in the eighth house are going to master those skills which most people are afraid about. So that is kind of usually some client will ask me, say, why I couldn't do it now when I was young, or why I couldn't do it earlier. I said, there is something. It's such important. You need time to prepare it. Everything related to Saturn, you need time to prepare it. And even I say, go for it, try it. You will say, oh, I'm not ready yet. So there is a frustration that in the Saturn in the eighth house. So, well, today I think we have an interesting chart example going to share with everyone. And I think, Alejo, you're probably familiar with this chart, right?
Yes, I am familiar with this chart.
Well,
So here we have,
yeah, go on.
the chart of Sigmund Freud, 6th of May, 1856, 6:30 p.m. Friedberg, I don't know, Friedberg, I don't know, Germany.
Freiberg. Well, you
hope you
probably
can
pronounce
find
it
it
better than me.
Yes. He's Scorpio rising. He has the moon in the eighth house, the moon in Gemini in the eighth house, which is quite interesting for a psychoanalyst, for the founder of psychoanalysis, and even more interesting for the founder of psychoanalysis. He has Saturn in the eighth house.
Indeed.
But he is the patriarch of the unconscious, if you want. He is the authority about what unconscious is, because the eighth house has to do with things that are hidden. And basically what I think it's interesting is like this drive from him to create, to find and see the hidden structures within us, you know, and he really went deep into trying to find what was the hidden structure within us. He became an authority in the field of unraveling, you know, the eighth house sometimes is also used as crisis and transformation, and he became like, okay, the way you face crisis and transformation is by going deep. This is Saturn in the eighth, right? And also I'm thinking of the topography of the unconscious. He has this book where he writes the topography of the unconscious. I mean, only somebody with Saturn in the eighth could think about making it of the unconscious, you know, the idea of being able to measure it. And also it's interesting that he was a scientist. So, you know, he died, and when he died, he was sure that we would eventually find in which part of the brain, of the physical brain, the unconscious was located. And this is also the idea of Saturn, right? The idea of finding a material evidence to his work, to everything he dedicated his life to. And I was going to say something else, but I lost it.
Well, but I think this as Sigmund Freud, we know when you see he has the Saturn in the house, you would say no wonder, because this is the house we're talking about. Like Alejo says, this is a place we're talking about unconsciousness, and then he has a Saturn in the eighth house. One thing I can say, Saturn is not just a bad thing. Saturn is also kind of realize something, make something happen, or give something a figure, give something a structure. So he really built up his kingdom, our Dark Lord. He built up his kingdom in that kind of a dark unconscious kingdom of unconsciousness. It's so just build a beautiful, I don't know what's beautiful, but clear structure, and make us understand, study about those strange behavior, or those things you couldn't explain. Some people would think about being cursed, you know, and then but through the psychology.
And you know, psychoanalysis has the way because psychoanalysis has been very, very misunderstood. And some people
Mm-hmm.
think that when you go to therapy, basically you end up blaming your parents for what happened. Because my parents did this, now I'm like this. Because my mom did this when I was 6 months, now I am like this. And actually, psychoanalysis is the opposite. Psychoanalysis has the ethical guide, the ethical substance of psychoanalysis is that
Mm-hmm.
of taking responsibility for your life. So when you
Mm-hmm.
go back to see what happened with you as a child, what your parents did, is
Mm-hmm.
not in order to blame them, it's in order to be aware of that and then decide what you want to do. So there's this sense of being responsible of your inheritance, which is very much Saturn in the eighth, and being responsible of your unconscious. There's a whole idea in psychoanalysis that there's an ethical responsibility to be aware of who you are, who you are deeply inside. And this is the only way to create a better world. And so it's not about, psychoanalysis is not about blaming others for what happened to me. It's actually about taking responsibility of what is that I'm inheriting. It's like
Mm.
Oedipus, King Oedipus, when he realized what he had done, he took responsibility for his actions. He was innocent. He didn't know what he had done, even though he took his eyes off. And this is the idea
Mm.
of psychoanalysis. You take responsibility for what you do and you change, you transform yourself, you become
Mm-hmm.
someone else by doing
Yeah.
that.
Wow, thank you, Alejo, for sharing this with us because you rarely hear people talking about Freud things in this kind of aspect and tips. You really need someone who studied really hard about him to talk
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, I think, yeah, you can tell that I'm passionate about this, right?
You are. So thank you, Alejo, to share this with us. And then so, Alejo, next week we are moved to
Saturn in the ninth house.
starting
Yeah.
the night house. Yeah, so well, thanks everyone for watching and listen. 10 minutes astrology. If you like our video, please like and share and tell your friend. Come to study astrology with us. It's fun, it's interesting, and it's tips. Have a really, really good, solid foundation of astrology. Okay. See you guys next week. Bye bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye bye.